he's trying to do several things at once. One is solidify the bilateral relationship with Israel. The Biden administration had some turmoil on that before the attack. He's trying to arrange for some sort of humanitarian relief for those in Gaza who are innocent and who may be victims here of the war that is going on. But he's also there to talk about what the future governance situation in Gaza will be. And so the conversations he's having, some of them are for public digestion and for display to Biden voters, to people in the region. Other things are behind the scenes, very clear-eyed, hopefully, conversations with friends and allies and perhaps even some frenemies in the region to set up the architecture of what is to come once the Israeli counterstrike in Gaza is over. So there's a high degree of difficulty here for Secretary Blinken and the administration. Frankly, they've been doing okay so far. I might have some criticism of some of the things they're doing on the domestic front, but there's political reasons for that. And I think, just as someone, as an American, you wish the best for the administration and the president and his team, and so I'm hopeful that this trip goes well.
Well, and Lester, considering that, as Joe just mentioned, as has been reiterated time and again, the U.S. has essentially expressed unconditional support for Israel. And unconditional, by definition, means you don't attach any conditions to that. So if there is something like an urge from the U.S. for Israel to provide these humanitarian pauses in strikes, is there any real leverage here to make Israel do that realistically? Or is whatever Israel wants to do what Israel is going to do, and the U.S. isn't actually in a position to do that much about it?
It's a great question. I think the reality here is Bibi Netanyahu's in a tough spot. And he is, my sense is, he and his war cabinet, of course, he's not the sole decision maker anymore because they've got a coalition arrangement in Israel making these decisions. But that government is working in lockstep with the Biden administration. So while the conversation about pauses and ceasefires and that kind of thing is perhaps for public consumption, behind the scenes, there's a different conversation happening. This is what statesmen and women have to do to get the job done. And I think the Netanyahu and his allies, new allies in the government, are actually working pretty well in concert with the Biden administration. It's quite complex. It is not the same thing that we are seeing for public display.
Secretary Blinken today not only speaking to the need to protect civilians, but said part of his trip was an attempt to keep this from escalating. Is that possible, Lester? What's your realistic view?
I think it is possible. That's the reason this diplomatic channel through Qatar is still active. It's why the administration is not shutting down things that it maybe in a more perfect world wouldn't have to do. There are ongoing conversations with all kinds of different factions of this situation in the Middle East. No one wants this to metastasize into something bigger, except maybe in Tehran. Tehran is goading its clients in Yemen, in Lebanon, to do more. The rest of the region, I promise, is working behind the scenes to mitigate that instinct from Tehran. They can't say that in public necessarily, but that's what's going on.